Plus. Just in such a good mood today. Going on a little siesta, a little sabbatical here for a few days.
Yeah, today's your Friday.
Yeah, it's just, I told you my dad took Wednesdays off. He was a doctor, small-town doctor. So every other day was Friday. Tuesday was Friday, and Friday was Friday. So he took Wednesday off. He worked as a doctor Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and then he'd work an occasional Saturday. And it was like his theory was every other day's Friday. You're just in a good mood going to work.
That's smart.
Yeah.
I like the Fridays off. 4-day work week.
Boom. We're both on that.
Yeah.
So this happens all the time. Right now in our sports world, most of the big brands are winning. The Dodgers are a big brand. They're winning. And the New York Yankees, they're not winning a World Series, but they're a very good team. Alabama football, Oklahoma football, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Duke basketball, Kansas basketball. Lakers are really good. Celtics are at least viable. Most of our big brands in America are winning. One is not, as much as we think in the last 15, 20 years, the Dallas Cowboys. And we kind of roll our eyes and mock the Dallas Cowboys. They don't have a Pro Bowler currently. Like, ooh. What has Pittsburgh done in the last decade? I want you to think about this. They've had 20 different players make the Pro Bowl in the decade. New England's had 19. New England's got 16 playoff wins. Steelers have 3. It's been a decade of brand over reality, underachieving, and disappointment. They have got in 10 years no Super Bowls, 3 playoff wins, and 2 wins over the New England Patriot dynasty. Their 3 playoff wins were over A.J. McCarron, Matt Moore, and Alex Smith, and 1 they didn't score a touchdown. They lost playoff games to Tim Tebow and Blake Bortles. The last time they beat a top quarterback in a playoff game, and this morning we kind of wrestled with this, it was Joe Flacco, and he was good-ish and dropped off a cliff quickly. We kind of roll our eyes at the Dallas Cowboys because of Jerry's vanity, and, he holds a press conference on local radio. And I think we all respect Kevin Colbert, the Rooney family, and they've certainly had great dignity the entire organization's history. But if you've got 20 different players who are Pro Bowlers over a decade, in the last decade, 13 teams have more playoff wins. 13. They're right in the middle of the pack. And here's another thing. There's no excuse for this. Whereas the Dallas Cowboys have had their issues, Philadelphia is well run. The Giants have Super Bowls. So does Washington. The Steelers have had the gift of having the Browns and the Bengals for the last decade in their division. I mean, that's 4-0 every year, right off the top. You don't get that in Dallas with Philadelphia, the Giants, and Washington. Although Washington certainly had their share of dysfunction. So, I think we're getting to a point, it's not a cheap shot. What have they been the last decade? It just feels like underachievement. Here we go again, derailed late in the season. These are not cheap shots. I went this morning and looked it up. There are 3 playoff wins in a decade. A.J. McCarron, Matt Moore, and Alex Smith. And losses to Tebow and Bortles. That's just, for the Steelers, not good enough. Joy Taylor with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
I've been saying it for the longest. And they had their franchise quarterback.
That's right. They had it there.
A 2-time Super Bowl winning franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
And you had Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown. And a 2-time Super Bowl winning franchise quarterback in that time.
So in that time, you, in that decade, had easily the best quarterback in the division for probably 8 of it. You had the best quarterback for 10 years. Flacco had a couple of years where he was fairly high-end, but he wasn't Ben.
Right.
So, there's a lot of things that have worked in your favor. And that's all I get.
Time for a little accountability, guys. So the Dolphins currently have the 7th spot in the AFC playoffs, but the Ravens are right there threatening to bump them out. And the Raiders also have an outside chance to get in with 2 games left this season. So Dolphins head coach Brian Flores knows how big this weekend's matchup against Vegas is for his team.
Our playoffs is this week against the Raiders. When you're playing in meaningful games, there's a little bit added, anxiety or stress, if you want to call it that. But it's good to kind of go through that and realize you're just still playing football.
This is a really interesting situation with the AFC playoff picture because we've talked about it this week. The Dolphins or the Ravens, one of them is not going to make the playoffs, and that's really insane.
Okay, let's say what we said yesterday.
It feels more dramatic if the Ravens don't make the playoffs.
The Ravens are going to go 11-5 and potentially not make the playoffs. You tell me, name a team in NFL history, let's go 25 years, as good as the Ravens at 11-5 and not make the playoffs. They'll be the greatest team I can remember not making the playoffs. We added a playoff spot in both conferences, and the Ravens at 11-5.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
But I think it's great that the AFC is so competitive.
Oh, I absolutely love it, and Brian Flores is just.
He's a star.
He is Belichick. He sounds like him at pressers. Like I
was thinking when he was talking, I'm like, there's a couple people who I really would not like to be scolded by. Brian Flores, one of them. Belichick, definitely one of them. I don't think I'd like a very serious talking to by Gruden. Like, we like Gruden. He's very, charismatic. But I think if he was really mad at you, it would be uncomfortable.
I believe the line on this game confuses me. I think Miami's going to win handily, and I don't understand the line, -2.5. I don't understand. Miami is playing better every week, and the Raiders are struggling. One defense is top 3, one is bottom 3.
Well, it is a road game.
Well, yeah, but does that even count anymore this year?
I just think you just factor in the travel. They are still traveling.
I don't
Obviously,
understand.
You don't have the crowds, and I'm sure that environment will be much different when there are crowds there. But it's still travel, so there's that. I don't know. I mean, I tend to lean that way as well. But this is technically like a playoff game for the Dolphins, so there is a little bit of added pressure and anxiety. They still have a lot of young players. So
and Miami, I think Miami, I'd have to check, Joey, they're getting some players back for this game. They were dinged up for the Patriots.
Yeah. So they have the Raiders, they're at the Raiders, and then their final game is at the Bills, and they kind of need to win both of those. So Doug Peterson announced that Jalen Hurts will be the starter again this week against the Cowboys. However, he would not commit to Hurts for the rest of the season. He said he obviously was sticking with Hurts for the next game, but he was only focused on this week. I don't know why he won't just say Hurts is the starter for the rest of the season.
Because
but
I think he's trying to massage the Wentz situation. Instead of just breaking up, you've still got a shot, and it makes the temperature in the room changes a little if you manage it like, okay, one more week of Hurts instead of we're going with Hurts. Then Wentz literally can't dodge the Philadelphia media, and it's just a circus.
It does cause a little bit more. I'm not quite as finesse as that, but he also wants to see how Hurts and the rest of the team respond after last week's loss. But even though they lost last week, it wasn't a loss I felt bad about. And I don't like to do that because I don't like moral victories. But I think when you're in a situation like this, you have to have a little bit more perspective.
Yeah.
Now, from a fan's perspective, that was a great game and a great watch. But it wasn't like Hurts wasn't there. He put the ball right where it needed to be 3 plays in a row at the end of the game to win it. They are at the Cowboys, and then they have Washington to finish out this season. And then we'll find out week 17 who won the NFC East if you're still interested in that. So the Heat are no longer in the running for James Harden.
Thank you.
Miami has reportedly decided to end their pursuit